All right, what's going on? Well, I got my background music playing with my boy Charleston White in the background. You're gonna hear him in the background, but you're gonna hear me talking in the foreground with my cybersecurity textbook. Title of this message is the Glossary, and this will be basic ATG, SEC. You already. This will be plus, and this will be quote unquote glossary terms. Terms with letter A. So only glossary terms letter A. We got 26 different alphabets to go through. Hit the post, then A, then hit the period, then hit the post. Why am I doing this? And as I study for the test terms, I realized that the best way to learn is by quote unquote having it be terms. And they got these made up terms. Remember what the guy said? He said they're making up a whole bunch of make up terms, and then you got to remember this for the damn created test questions that they make up to the goddamn made up terms. So, for glossary, starting with the letter A, I'm going to give you the word, and I'm going to give you the acronym. I'm not going to give you the definition, but the word and the acronym. Okay? The word is AUP. AUP, Acceptable Use Policy. AUP. AUP, Acceptable Use Policy. Access badge. Access badge. An access badge. Okay? Next, access control list. Or an ACL for the short access control list, otherwise known as an ACL. Then access control vestibule. An access control vestibule. An access control vestibule. I'm looking at these guys out here doing this beautiful walk. I plan to be doing the exact same thing as them, man, for our heart. Except I'm gonna take it to the next level. Then access point or WAP. Wireless access point. Yeah, you hear the guy talking. This is to keep me focused. I need background noise to keep me focused. Account lockout. That's a term. It's in the book. Account lockout. Account policies. Account policies. The triple AAA or the IAAA. There's identification A, and A. This one is called accounting. Now, I don't understand why the other three words ain't there. Because not only should it be, but I know why they're not there. This is by alphabetical order. So we'll get to the other two words in the triple A. But accounting is the last one of the triple A. Acquisition and procurement. Remember, this is alphabetical order. Active reconnaissance. Active reconnaissance. Alphabetical order. Active security control. Active security controls. Obviously, we'll get to the passive one, but you know there's a passive one. Ad hoc network. These are all words in the definitions or terms that start with the letter A. ARP. 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 That stands for Address Resolution Protocol. Address Resolution Protocol. APT. APT. An advanced persistent threat. An advanced persistent threat. Adware. This is really important. Adware is software, and there's two different definitions for adware. AES GCM protocol. The AES GCM protocol. That's an advanced term. We need it later on in the encryption phase, but just know that's a letter, that's a term in the letter A. Air gap. Air gap. To air gap something. Air gap a computer. Air gap APC. Next one. Alert tuning. That's a deep term, but it's really dealing with false positives. So we'll come to false positives and false negatives, true positives, and true negatives later. Allow listing. That's the word is a whitelist. Same as a whitelist. Amplification attack. It's a part of a DDoS or DOS attack, otherwise known as a denial of service or a distributed denial of service attack. DDoS or DOS attack. What's up, boss? DDoS or DOS attack. Amplification attack. Amplification attack. All right, this term analysis. Now, inside an incident, we analyze something. We use analysis. We do an analysis. That's a term they're giving us. I don't agree with that term, but that's a term that's the word in the book, in the glossary. Now we're gonna get into the later on. These are very important terms for money. Analyze loss of expectancy. Yeah, I know. Analyze loss of expectancy, otherwise known as the ALE, an Alpha Lima Echo. We also will talk about what's called an SLE, or the annual rate of an occurrence, an ARO. Those are going to be some mathematical terms for a couple of test questions. When we get into the chapter 13, 14, 15, 16, those chapters right there is the most important because you deal with the math. And I got to practice that for just my life. And then for the test, hope that the 90 questions out of 715, I don't get too many of those goddamn questions. ARO, ALE, ARO. So ALE means annualized loss expectancy. Talking about risk. That's in the risk chapter. Then we get into the annualized rate of occurrence, which is also a risk calculation. And then we get into anomalous behavior recognition. And the term that, what is that term? A term, anonymous recognition. Well, it's a very big, powerful term. It's a term that we use, anonymous recognition. And it's so funny, I was in there, as I sat back and looked at this, anonymous recognition. It is a term that and that we'll talk about that later, but it's called anomalous behavior recognition. Antivirus scan, otherwise known as the AV scan, antivirus scan. Okay. The next one we got after antivirus and antivirus scan. Okay. We get into anything as a service, and that is a BS point. That's a made-up term, but really anything as a service is a bunch of bullshit that the companies have made. Software as a service, platform as a service, infrastructure as a service, job as a service. Basically, anything can become a service. Anything can become a service. So that's a good point. It's an IT concept, which basically means anything can become a cloud service. That's what it basically means. Anything as a service, okay? I can take this. Now, sun's going down, so I don't need to have shades on right now. But to protect my eyes from going yellow, and like they're looking at right now, I gotta do some things to help because I hate them going yellow like this. Appliance firewall. What is an appliance firewall? An appliance firewall. These are all terms in the glossary. I want to get them on the writing because you don't got time to look at the definition. Go to the book, but at least hear the word, hear the term. Application programming interface, an API. That is what my Cisco jobs, WebEx, all these things are teaching me to learn. The APIs. I just hadn't had the time to practice the application programming interface, but I'm going to have to learn that. That's a script or a program. that allows other programs to use it. Basically, learn the script to learn the script. Learn the script to do the program. This is application virtualization software. That is very powerful. Basically, that is basically EXXI. I used to have all this stuff until I moved and I threw away my server that was kind of obsolete, and I gotta buy me a new updated 2025 server on eBay so I can then be able to have VMware 8.0 and all that, and then I can build. But I got to get a better job. I got to get a job in Jesus' name. I want to get that. Arbitrary code execution. Arbitrary code execution definition, a term. What is the term arbitrary code execution? What is the definition of art poisoning? That is an actual test question. It's actually the answer choice is art poisoning. What is art poisoning? Yep. And again, these are, when we say we saw art poisoning earlier, and then before we saw ARP or ARP. So ARP is Address Resolution Protocol, and the art poisoning will be Address Resolution Protocol poisoning. See that? So by understanding ARP, the definition of those three letters, and then add the word poisoning on the end, you get the concept. It's a big concept, big concept. Page Glossary G2 on page G2. Artificial intelligence. Artificial intelligence. What is artificial intelligence? That's the future of our jobs, taking away our jobs in 2025. What is an asset? An asset. That's pretty basic. You know, basic accounting term, physical term, any term. My car is an asset to me, but it's also an expense as well. Asymmetric algorithm. Oh, so this is good. We have the asymmetric algorithms and we have the symmetric algorithms. And earlier, a couple of days ago, I've been studying the 6 different symmetric algorithms and then the different asymmetric algorithms. We have to learn those well, really, for our life. It's ain't nothing to play around with. That's why when the guy was telling us this test gonna be fucking easy, he was lying. But I knew he was lying. That's why I recorded the motherfucker. Because in my heart of hearts, I said, there's no goddamn way I'm gonna be able to know asymmetric, symmetric, all these things in less than a week. You tell me I'm gonna learn 700 pages in 1 week. You hear that? This black man right here is talking. You can't hear him. His name is Old Man Pops. He's in his 70s. He grew up in a really tragic life. He can't read or write, but he has enough wisdom to understand the game. But the thing that I will say about Pops is this: his life is over with. He's done. He's at the end of his life. I'm in the middle of mine. I'm not going to let his mindset stop me from my time. And so, asymmetric algorithm, big term, big paragraph. Attack surface. What's an attack surface? That's just a big old fresh word, basically a surface of an attack. I know, but it's a little bit more complex than attack. Basically, attack surface is points where the attack comes in. An attack vector. So let's talk about both of those. Since this is Security Plus, and this is about these two major areas, attacks. What is an attack surface? A point at which a network or an application receives external connections or inputs or outputs, such as, we call them IOs for short. N for I, O for out. N for input, O for output, IO. So inputs or outputs at a particular computer, these input output are areas where you can attack that computer, in my own words. Now they use another word, they call a potential vector. A vector is another word for an attack. Or a vector is basically an opening. A vector is an opening. I got a vector. I got an opening. And I got a vector, an opening. And they have what's called a threat actor. A threat actor is an individual that's an actor who's doing something illegal. He's a threat. Okay. Now, what's an attack vector versus an attack surface? Now, we told you an attack surface is otherwise known as an attack input or an attack external connection or an attack output, otherwise known as the attack surface. The attack vector is the path or a specific path. That's the key word. So if I say an attack vector, I'm going to have to say the specific path, the nerd attacked that computer. Otherwise known as the path by which the person got access to the system, unauthorized access to the system. What's attestation? Big legal word. Attestation. You need to know this for chapter 1. The capability of a authenticator or any other cryptography module to prove that it's a root of trust and also provide reliable reporting to the bosses to prove that that device or that computer is a trustworthy platform. Okay? It's to prove that that device is a trustworthy platform. It's called it's attestation. Now, we're going to get into attribute versus role-based access controls. Remember earlier we talked in the first page, we talked about active security controls. Now we're going to get over into what's called attribute versus role-based access controls. Attribute-based control is an access control technique that evaluates the set of attributes that each subject must possess to determine if that access can be or should be granted. Now we'll come over to the other A. There's access. There is role-based. We'll come to those in the different when we get to letter R for role-based. Authentication, a method of validating a particular entity's individual credentials. Just go to the book and look at the terms, but the term is most important. Attestation, attribute-based access control, authentication. That's one of the A's. Remember I told you about the 3 A's? We had accounting, we have authentication, and we have, I think the other one's authorization. We'll come to authorization in a few minutes. So here it is, the 3 A's. They're called the triple A. Authentication, authorization, and accounting. The triple 3 A's. Test question, test question, test question. What are the 3 A's? An authentication header on a particular message, on an IP message, and this is getting all into networking 101. It's called authentication header. You get that's when you learn Network Plus, but that's a part of that. And then we have an authenticator, and that gets into the radius server, and that's getting more into deeper levels of the actual radius server. But that term is a new term they made up for the test. Authorized. They made up that term. There's no such thing as an authorized. It's just they're saying a hacker engaged in an authorized penetration testing. Well, not really. I mean, that would be basically an ethical hacker. It's not an authorized, but you see CompTIA made some weird ass terms. So as you go through this glossary, you get these crappy ass terms. And why this is important? Because when you're going through the book is giving you the terms, and they give them to you real fast, but you don't get a definition. So really, when you get that definition, it really helps you master the term. Does that make sense? Yeah. Then we get into authorization. Well, that was again part of that AAA of authentication, authorization, and accounting. Now we're going to talk about availability. Oh, the CIA triad: confidentiality, integrity, availability. Though that's another 3-tier concept you must master. A backdoor into a computer, backdoor into a program, a backdoor into a network. A backup of a copy of a program. What's a backup? So that ends the letter A for availability. So now we're going into B. We're going to stop here, and we're going to now go to another video, and we're going to give you B.